What if I told you one of America's biggest burger chains didn't run a single flashy ad to get you in their front door? There were no neon signs shouting deals from the rooftops or frozen patties stacked in a back room. All they needed was just a handful of simple things: fresh ground beef, potatoes in brown sacks, and a paper bag so greasy you almost feel guilty holding it. While every other big name in fast food raced to add more to their menus, like breakfast wraps, salads, and smoothies, one family stuck to the basics. They believed that if you do one thing well enough, the world will find you. And the world sure did. Some folks called them the reverse McDonald's, but for many, they will always be known as Five Guys. These days, the franchise is pulling in over $2 billion a year, all while ignoring the noisy tricks everyone else swears by. So how does a burger joint with no frozen food and barely any marketing become a household name in 20 countries? It sounds impossible, but that's what makes this story worth hearing. Because behind every fresh patty is an old-fashioned idea that might just make you question why you never discovered Five Guys earlier than you did. And of course, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Back in 1986, a father in Arlington, Virginia gave his 4 boys a choice. He could either send them off to college, or they could stay close to home and build something together. Thankfully, college didn't win that day. Business ideas did, and the one they settled on was burgers. But how were 4 inexperienced teenagers going to pull off a global franchise when they had no idea about running a business whatsoever? You see, their father, Jerry Murrell, and his wife, Janie, took a leap most families wouldn't dare. They rented a tiny shop on Columbia Pike, with nothing but just a grill, fresh buns, and a dream to do burgers right. And as you can guess, the name was as simple as the plan: Five Guys, consisting of Jerry and his 4 sons. A few years later, another son, the youngest brother, came along and the name made even more sense. Everyone pulled their weight inside that first little joint. While Dad ran the grill, the boys chopped potatoes by hand and served up burgers that dripped onto the wrapper in the best way. There were no frozen shortcuts and no microwaves humming in the back. It was the kind of place you walk past, catch a whiff of sizzling beef, and turn right back around. Not long after, the locals started to talk about the place. One bite and you tell your neighbor about it. Word spread, and pretty soon, people were lining up just to grab a paper bag of fries. Back then, nobody even guessed that this no-frills family shop would one day sit alongside giants like McDonald's. But it did. Sometimes the best stories start with nothing but a hot grill, a family that won't back down, and the simple promise that good food speaks for itself. One thing that makes Five Guys stands out, even after all these years, is how stubborn they've been about staying true to what they believe in. From the very first day, they made up their minds about one rule: no freezers, ever. For most fast food joints, that sounds crazy. Freezers mean speed, savings, and an easy way to keep costs down. But the Murrell family thought differently. They knew that frozen beef just doesn't taste the same. Once meat hits that ice, it loses part of what makes it real. So instead of cutting corners, they stuck to the old-fashioned way. Every patty is made by hand every single morning. You can walk into any Five Guys kitchen and see the staff shaping ground beef into thick, juicy burgers, one by one. There are no microwaves sitting in the back to warm up limp patties. Everything goes straight from the grill to your bun. And it's not just the beef either. Take the fries for instance. They buy huge sacks of potatoes, and you often see them stacked high by the door. Those potatoes don't come pre-cut in frozen bags like at other chains. Workers peel and slice them right there, so the fries coming out tasting like the ones that your grandma might make at home. Golden, soft on the inside, crispy on the outside. And they always cook them in peanut oil, which gives them that warm, nutty flavor you can't fake. People say they're old school. Some call them foolish. But the Murrells believed that if the food was fresh and honest, people would keep coming back. And that says a lot, because in a world that rushes to serve everything faster and cheaper, Five Guys stuck to their guns. They bet on taste instead of what's in vogue. And you know what they say, good things come to those who wait. And that's exactly what's going to happen to them. But just how good would it be? When most people think of fast food, they probably picture the golden arches of McDonald's first. It's no surprise. McDonald's is the king of making everything quick, cheap, and almost the same no matter where you are in the world. They've got so many menu items, you could stand there staring at the board all day trying to decide. Burgers, wraps, nuggets, sundaes, breakfast sandwiches, the list goes on and on. Five Guys looked at that model and did almost the complete opposite. They didn't want dozens of fancy burgers or breakfast burritos that sit under heat lamps. They didn't even care to offer salads or little side snacks. All they cared about was making burgers and fries taste the best they possibly could. They knew that if you kept adding more and more things, you'll end up losing the real flavor that makes it special in the first place. You can feel this difference the moment you step inside of Five Guys. A lot of people remember the first time they walked in. They see bags of potatoes piled up by the entrance, and they could smell the peanut oil before they even order. It's like a comforting promise that what you're about to eat didn't come out of a freezer truck. Another thing that sets them apart is the open kitchen. You can see the workers grilling your burger, adding the toppings you picked, and tossing those fries until they're just right. Nothing is hidden behind a back wall. It's all out there for you to watch, like a live show. Some people wondered, could sticking to just a handful of items ever compete with giants like McDonald's? Well, sometimes less really does mean more. In Five Guys' case, fewer choices didn't make them smaller. In fact, it made them stand out in a crowded world where everything is pretty much the same. One of the wildest parts about Five Guys' story is how they became so big without throwing millions at flashy ads. Most fast food chains blast your eyes with billboards and TV commercials every chance they get. You hear their jingles and they get stuck in your head for days. But the Merrill family never wanted to create that kind of awareness. They trusted that if food was good enough, people would do the talking for them. That word-of-mouth magic didn't fade over time. It grew even stronger. These days, it's not just someone leaning over a backyard fence saying, "You gotta try this place." Now it's TikTok clips and Instagram stories. People love to share the way their fries spill out the bag, leaving those famous grease stains that almost feel like a badge of honor. Young people especially seem to love the behind-the-scenes vibe, with all those raw videos of potatoes being cut, fries sizzling in peanut oil, and the simple red and white decor that really hasn't changed. Nothing sells a burger better than someone's honest bite and a satisfied smile. But if you ever walked past that tiny burger shop in Arlington back in the late 80s, you probably wouldn't have guessed that it would one day turn into the global name that it is today. So how were they able to move beyond that small local place that smelled like fresh patties and peanut oil to become a global business? After that first spot found its footing, they opened a few more around the neighborhood. By the early 2000s, they had 5 stores up and running, and each one had lines that seemed to wrap around the block. Folks would drive clear across town for those fries, and if you asked them why, they'd probably tell you that it was worth every mile. Word got out pretty fast, and before long, people from other cities wanted in. The Mules agreed to let people open new locations, but they didn't just hand the keys to anyone. Even as they grew, they stayed picky. That pickiness eventually paid off 2 decades later, and by 2012, Five Guys had more than 1,000 stores across US and Canada. And at the moment, that number has climbed to over 1,700 locations in more than 20 countries, pulling in $2.2 billion a year. Now you'd think that all that growth might water things down, but somehow it didn't. Fans still say that the fries taste the same whether you're in New York or London. Some people even joke that Five Guys is their road trip tradition, that they'll plan a pit stop just to bite into that burger and watch the bag soak through with all that glorious fry grease. So how do you grow big without losing what made you special? Maybe the answer is that you never forget what made people fall in love with you in the first place. In Five Guys' case, that was fresh food, no gimmicks, and a family that refused to cut corners, even as the world around them sped up. Seriously, what better business lesson is there to learn than that? Behind every Five Guys burger is the Merrill family tight grip on what they built together. After all these years, the 6 brothers still keep an eye on everything. People say that they can spend hours arguing about things like whether the pickles should be stacked sideways or straight. It might sound silly, but it shows how much they care about the little things. Unlike so many brands that expand fast and loosen the rules, Five Guys is strict when it comes to who gets to run one of their stores. They don't just sell a franchise to anyone waving a big check. If you want in, you have to prove that you'll do things their way, from fresh patties to hand-cut fries, open kitchens, and that same relaxed come-as-you-are vibe. They even have inspectors who drop in unannounced to check on every last detail. They want the floor clean enough to eat off of, the music playing at just the right volume, and their fries cooked like they do it themselves. If a location slips up, they can lose their license. In a world where big companies sell out at the drop of a hat, the Mules stay stubborn. They could have cashed in and handed control to some giant corporation years ago, but they didn't. And maybe that's what people like the most. They want to taste that old school honesty in every bite. Sometimes being a little hard-headed is exactly what keeps a good thing from falling apart. That's why when you ask people why they keep coming back to Five Guys, you probably hear the same thing over and over. They trust it. In a world where so many brands promise the moon then deliver something half-baked, Five Guys feels like the place that means what it says. They haven't jumped on every trendy food craze just to get clicks. They didn't suddenly start selling vegan wraps or rainbow-colored milkshakes. They stuck to what they know, burgers and fries, done the right way every single time. It's funny how something so simple can feel so special. For a lot of people, biting into a Five Guys burger tastes like a memory. It reminds them of backyard cookouts, road trips with friends, or grabbing a meal with family after a long week. Sometimes you just want to taste your childhood again, and Five Guys knows how to serve that up without messing up the recipe. So the next time you bite into a Five Guys burger, remember, it's not just fresh beef and hand-cut fries you're tasting. It's a family's refusal to take shortcuts, a belief that doing one thing really well still matters. In 2025, that might sound old-fashioned, but maybe that's exactly why it works. Would you trust a burger joint that still refuses to freeze their beef in a world that's obsessed with convenience? Let me know in the comments. And if you love stories where the little guys win big by staying true to themselves, hit that subscribe button, because there's plenty more where that came from.